10 was an exciting one for a number of different reasons. A lot of anomalies, a lot of weird games, and certainly some massive, massive performances, especially on the Thursday night. Also, to address the elephant in the room, yep, I am getting a bit scruffy. It is November, and yes, my school does that. So you are going to see the beard get bigger and then suddenly the beard disappear and maybe a little lip fungus stick around. I'm working with younger kids right now, and if you've seen me with a mustache, I really should not be in schools when I have one. So kind of pumping the brakes. But within a week or two, I guess you'll see it. This is one of the few times Jackie is extremely happy she's not here in Bangkok. Anyway, enough about me and my facial hair. Let's get on to this week in the NFL. The title might be slightly nihilistic, sure, but this week for me, nothing really matters. And football stuff aside, more of it's because, and just full disclosure, I think a lot of people know this, but this little part, the part that talks about football, this goes in all of the videos. Everything else is league specific except for this. I don't redo an NFL one just for each video. So there's a lot of people listening here who are educators and international or non, people in education in general, some admin, etc. But even people that aren't, there's a high percentage that maybe you have kids. So perhaps you can empathize with the week that is report card comment writing week, because I spend the whole week doing it to find out that, nothing really matters. Most of my colleagues just use AI now, so maybe I should just put all of the feedback that actually matters that I've given them over the year and make a little word cloud and put it in a 8x10 and give it to parents. Maybe that would be better than doing this. Anyways, this is literally the only thing I'm doing all week that is not report card comment based or work based, I should say. So I'll get right to it. This translates as well into football and fantasy football. If you were watching last week, there were some great games and a lot of people were excited. Maybe you did your research and you thought you'd kind of pick, were the Chiefs going to fall to the Broncos, and you had it and you were right and it was going to happen, and then it was a blocked field goal kick. And I'm not getting into the conspiracy theories that have essentially been debunked about Mahomes talking to the referee and asking for help, because apparently that is not what happened. Shock, I think the Chiefs of all teams know that hate is going to hate, and when you're undefeated and you've won the Super Bowl last year, people are going to want to make reasons why you're winning other than you're just actually pretty decent. But that could have been a huge game, huge upset, maybe on the Sunday nighter. Maybe you're thinking I was going to see two offenses in Detroit and Houston, or two teams in general that were supposed to be heavily touted. Should be a well-played game, only to watch 8 interceptions decide it. Insane. 5-3. Goff and CJ Stroud, these are not supposed to be slouch of QBs. And if you watch some of them were not the best efforts. And if you were thinking, is this an NFL record? Maybe you did your homework. 8 in a game can't just be a record, because actually 8 as an individual, there has been a quarterback by the name of Jim Hardy who had 8 interceptions. Although he is so old, I know that's a joke. How old is he? He is so old, his Wikipedia cover profile page is hand-drawn. No jokes there. That's legit. But that game ends up getting decided, as Collingsworth kind of said, because they didn't paint or repaint the goalposts, because the 2 field goals to tie and to go ahead were by such a small narrow, it literally just looked like it just inched by. So you could have had all of these predictions only to really come down to a couple big plays. And in fantasy, we saw the exact same thing. Maybe you did your waiver wire pickups, you did your research, you did your kind of bye-week strategy to make sure you had the best chance to win. And then you watched the Thursday night game, and maybe you played Burrow, or even worse, Jamar Chase was on the other team, or even worse, both. And it didn't matter. The game was over before you barely checked the scores on your Friday morning, or for me when I watched them on Friday night here. So again, we're walking into week 11, and this is when it matters the most. Maybe there's some teams who have clinched. I don't think there's any teams who are technically mathematically out of it yet, but they will be as of this week if they start losing, or they keep losing, I should say. So this obviously really, really matters, and yet nothing matters. Maybe pick someone up on the waiver wire. Take a shot. Maybe that person that's been on your bench is going to score points or score 50 points. Who knows? At this stage, your guess is as good as mine. Statistically, if we look at the records, probably better. Anyway, let's get on to our scores. As I just mentioned, there's nothing worse than that Thursday night when the bomb drops, and that happened to our defending champions in Team Kickass. Randy came out of the gates early, often, and kind of just didn't stop for 178. That's going to win pretty much everything all the time. Chase is obviously the story, 56 plus. That's pretty exceptional. I don't think anyone can expect that at any point in time. However, if you look at her roster, it wasn't a fluke either. Not only does it round it off with like the kicker 4, she had the running back 1 in Bijan Robinson, and she had the quarterback 4 in Murray. So obviously scoring from across the table. She even had some down plays, so things could have been worse. I mean, Team Kickass put up a fight. Kelsey was the tight end 1. They did have the defense 1, or tied for the defense 1 in Philadelphia. And unfortunately for them, a running back 5 on the bench in Eckler. So had they kind of moved, I mean, Cooper hasn't been super healthy, so might have been a decent idea to put Debo up and do something else there. But that's obviously in retrospect. And for what? Just so they could say they got to 130 plus and they lost by only 40. I guess that could be something. And tiebreak wise, they're a team you probably want to go on a run sooner than later just to make sure you're not on the outside looking in. But Randy, I mean, no one really assumes anyone's going to be able to take Jules and Lara out of the top spot. But if anyone can do it, it might be you. Pretty epic matchup here. We had 2 in our top kind of seeded groups going after each other. Juliet and Lara had something to play for. We'll talk about that in a second. And they actually did face what I was just talking about. They did look on the Thursday and see Burrow go off. But remember, on Thursday, they also had their quarterback go off, so they weren't exactly sweating it. This was actually the quarterback 1 in Burrow and 2 in Lamar, so pretty cool matchup there. Jules and Lara did have an 86% chance to win on the Monday Night Miracle kind of situation. We did have a Monday Night Miracle, but this wasn't it for Helen Vincent. Sorry, folks. But you did have Minnesota, which was a top defense. It was a top 5. Unfortunately for you, you're going against Jules and Lara, who had the second-ranked defense. They also managed to squeeze out a few decent performances, like our running back Connor here was the running back 3, and that was more than enough to take it. 140 is obviously pretty momentous, and let's just be honest, fourth and conquer. If you're going to go after the champions, you're going to have to exceed your predictions, and you didn't quite do it, even with the great Thursday performance. Henry was an underperformance there, and I think that would have been the thing that swung it. If anything that kind of Lamar ended up doing in the passing game would have gone to Henry in the rushing game, I think you would have seen this go the other way. What Jules and Lara got, aside from our top seed, I'll get to in a second, but fourth and conquer, don't worry, you're above 4th, you're 3rd, so wasn't the worst thing in the world for you either this week. I mentioned the Monday Night Miracle, and here it was. Sadly for Jackie, you had this one locked up. They were only a 26% chance to win on Monday coming in. They were up 32 points. And Jax, you had your highest scoring running back in Williams, who had a bad game. You had a consistently decent quarterback in Stafford, who ... had a bad game. And then you had perennial, should be one of the biggest wide receiver threats in the league, who's having an off year, in Tyreek Hill, who had a mediocre game. If any one of them would have gone off, or any combination of even just coming close to hitting their predictions, you would have taken this one down. As you can see, even if one of them just would have punched one in, Williams actually had some chances on the goal line. Had he punched one in, gone to the end zone, that was it. He actually broke his streak. He had so many games in a row with a touchdown that this was almost the anomaly, and that's what it took. But unfortunately for you, that would have put you in the current playoff hunt, so you're not out of it in 7th, and we got a couple weeks left, but it's always nice to see you're in the top 6. Whereas Cerberus, this was a big win for you, staying in your top 4. 6-4 is a pretty good record, as we'll get to in a second, so huge comeback. Congrats on the Monday night. I needed a bit of that miracle. I was a 30% chance to win coming into Monday, but I didn't really think with Paka Nakua on the one side. I had Chan and a little bit of a fight left in me, but unfortunately nothing close to what I needed. So I fell short, so congratulations to Kelsey. This was kind of much needed from both of us. I really could have used that win to get into 6. It would have put me in much better standing. And you, though, really did need that 4th win. It puts you right in the mix, as we'll get to in a second. You didn't have monster performances, although Laporta being the tight end 3 has to be something you're pretty happy about. And in general, if you look down here, you were nearly commando, nothing in the basement. You had a bunch of bye weeks, so if you can squeeze out a win when you have that many buys, that's kind of a win plus for you this week. One of the odd races this week in our particular league is, if you remember, I was the low scorer, but I'm already burnt, so I don't count. Maybe go back to my nihilistic start here. So if you look, this was actually a decimal point battle between the household here. Raf ends up taking it, and by taking it, I mean scoring the low. This is, Raf, your second week that you now owe as the low score. For Pamela, this was a much-needed win, but also kind of redemption from last year, I think. These were kind of two teams who were battling it out, if you remember, and if you were in the league. So Pamela did have a pretty well-rounded one here, quarterback 5 in Purdy, wide receiver 5 in Pickens. But I think probably the most exciting thing, if you're Pamela, because obviously the season's been a little bit disappointing, but with Barkley and now McCaffrey back, you have a potential to actually go on that run that you would need to go on to make some magic happen. Raf and James, you also could have kind of needed this one. I think I was talking in the same vein as you, where we both really could have used that 6th win, but you took the hit. You did have Chuba Hubbard go off for running back 2 on the week, and he's been a huge pickup all year, but you didn't really have much else on the go to help yourself out. You did have some points on the bench that I don't think would have won it for you, but it would have kept you out of the basement and would have made your significant other have to pay for the round. But you're still in the top 6, which means if it ends today, you'd be happy, and there are worse things than that. There's the little asterisk I was alluding to. That means no matter what, Jules and Lara, you're making the playoffs, so that's pretty great. Now, obviously, there's a financial benefit to finishing first, and top 2 do get buys in the first round of the playoffs, so there's a lot of incentive there. I do mention you do get told if you can't mathematically make the playoffs, I believe. So our 2 and 8 teams, you still do have a chance, and like I said, it just takes a run. Now, will that run start this week? Let's see. What we will see this week is our 1 and 2 and our 3 and 4 going after it. Now, it's kind of nice to have a showdown like this, but if I'm a playoff team, I don't really necessarily want to be playing other playoff teams, but maybe you do. Maybe you want to knock them out and be the reason why. Or maybe like in down here, like Raf and I, we want to be spoilers, hang on to our spot against the 2 teams that need to go on a run. And 7 versus 8, these are not must wins, but this would be huge advantages to try and squeak your way in and see if you can get into the top 6. So obviously, I'm going to say this every single week from now on in. Pretty much every matchup matters. So make sure you're paying attention to your bye weeks, your injuries. Make sure you put your best foot forward, because a win is more than a win in week 11. Moving on to week 11, I know I already just talked about the matchups. I want to talk about something else just quickly. I fully get that I moved away and I just crushed the social circle that was at the football drink crew here, but we've only had one group get together and buy a round. So Jackie still owes 1, Pamela still owes 1, Raf now owes 2, and yeah, guilty enough, I owe 2. I'm just waiting for my partner to be in town long enough to host something. So they are upcoming. Pick your shots. Remember, you don't have to wait for everyone to be there. Sometimes it was just nice to have that excuse on a Thursday or whenever day you pick to go out and grab a couple for those who could make it. It's not next week, but it is upcoming in a couple weeks, where if you remember, we all went down to watch the Thursday night game because it was American Thanksgiving, so that might be an option. Again, not next week, but the week after. Back onto football, though. I do hope everyone gets together sooner than later. Please pay attention, though, to the matchups. Arizona, Tampa Bay, Giants, and Carolina are your bye weeks. Nothing else is funky. We're done with Europe, so it should just be getting down to it for the next week or two, again, until Thanksgiving. So if you can get together, awesome. If you can't, at least enjoy, and best of luck in week 11.